Let me begin by saying something that may sound shocking at first. You do not need to destroy your emotions. You need to stop letting them destroy you. When people hear the phrase, kill your emotions, they imagine becoming cold, distant, unfeeling. But that is not what this is about. This is about learning emotional mastery. This is about refusing to let temporary feelings control permanent decisions. This is about taking your power back. Emotions are powerful. They are real. They are human. But they are not always truthful. You can feel like quitting and still be capable. You can feel rejected and still be worthy. You can feel afraid and still be ready. You can feel tired and still be strong. The problem is not that we have emotions. The problem is that we obey them without questioning them. Think about how many opportunities are lost because of one emotional moment. One wave of doubt stops someone from starting a business. One moment of embarrassment stops someone from speaking up. 1 hour of sadness stops someone from going to the gym. One episode of anger destroys a relationship built over years. An emotion lasts minutes. A decision can shape decades. If you want to change your life, you must learn to pause between feeling and action. Emotions are like weather. They pass. A storm can feel overwhelming, loud, dramatic. But storms do not last forever. Yet when we act during the storm, we often create damage that remains long after the clouds clear. You do not need to suppress your emotions. You need to control your response to them. There is a difference. Killing your emotions means killing their authority, not their existence. It means you feel them, but you do not let them drive. You observe them, but you do not surrender to them. You acknowledge them, but you do not hand them the steering wheel of your life. Because here is the truth: your emotions are reactions. Your values are decisions. Emotions react to circumstances. Values choose direction. If you live emotionally, your life will be inconsistent. One day you feel inspired, the next day discouraged. One day confident, the next insecure. One day disciplined, the next distracted. And your results will mirror that instability. But when you live by principles instead of feelings, everything changes. You wake up and you act according to your standards, not your mood. You speak according to your integrity, not your anger. You work according to your goals, not your comfort. That is power. Many people confuse emotional intensity with authenticity. They believe that acting on every feeling means they are being real. But real strength is choosing wisdom over impulse. Real maturity is responding instead of reacting. Let me give you an example. You apply for something important and you get rejected. The emotional reaction says, "You are not good enough. Stop trying." If you obey that emotion, you quit. If you master it, you say, "This hurts, but it does not define me. I will learn and try again." The emotion was real, but it was not the final truth. Or imagine someone criticizes you. Your emotion may scream, attack back, defend yourself, prove them wrong. But discipline says, pause. Is this criticism useful? Can I grow from it? Sometimes silence is stronger than retaliation. Killing your emotions means choosing long-term growth over short-term satisfaction. It means understanding that feelings fluctuate, but your purpose should not. And here is the deeper truth. The people who seem the strongest are not emotionless. They simply have trained themselves not to collapse under emotional pressure. They still feel fear. They move forward anyway. They still feel doubt. They prepare anyway. They still feel sadness. They show up anyway. They still feel anger. They respond with composure anyway. That is emotional intelligence. That is discipline. That is leadership over your own mind. You cannot build a successful life if every uncomfortable feeling becomes a stop sign. Growth requires discomfort. Improvement requires frustration. Achievement requires moments of uncertainty. If you quit every time something feels hard, you will build a life defined by avoidance. But if you learn to sit with discomfort without reacting impulsively, you will build resilience. And resilience is more powerful than motivation. Let me be clear, this is not about becoming numb. It is about becoming stable. It is about saying, I will not let a temporary emotion dictate a permanent direction. You can feel pain without becoming weak. You can feel anger without becoming destructive. You can feel sadness without becoming hopeless. You can feel fear without becoming paralyzed. The goal is not to erase emotion. The goal is to elevate above it. When you master your emotions, you become dangerous in the best possible way. You become steady, predictable in your discipline, consistent in your values, calm under pressure, focused under stress. And in a world where many people are ruled by impulse, stability becomes a superpower. So today, make a decision. When emotion rises, pause. When anger burns, breathe. When doubt whispers, question it. When fear appears, take one step forward anyway. You are not your feelings. You are the one experiencing them. And once you understand that, you stop being controlled and you start leading. Now, let us break this down into 5 powerful key principles that will help you master your emotions and take control of your life. The first step in learning to kill your emotions is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming clear. Clear about one powerful truth: feelings are real, but they are not always facts. This single shift can change your entire life. Every day, you experience emotions that feel convincing. When you feel rejected, it feels like you are unworthy. When you feel afraid, it feels like danger is everywhere. When you feel embarrassed, it feels like everyone is judging you. When you feel overwhelmed, it feels like you are incapable. But feelings are interpretations, not conclusions. Your mind reacts instantly to situations. It creates a story, and that story produces emotion. The problem is that we often treat that story as truth without questioning it. Imagine you send an important message and you receive no response. Instantly, your mind creates a narrative. They are ignoring me. I said something wrong. I am not important. And suddenly, you feel insecure, anxious, maybe even angry. But the fact is simple: there was no response. Everything else was interpretation. When you do not separate feelings from facts, your life becomes a series of emotional reactions to imagined meanings. And those reactions shape decisions. You quit too early. You argue too quickly. You doubt yourself too deeply. You walk away too soon. Emotional mastery begins with pause. When a strong feeling rises, ask yourself one simple question: what is the fact and what is the story I am telling myself? The fact is objective. The story is emotional. For example, fact: you failed an exam. Story: I am stupid. I will never succeed. A fact: someone criticized your work. Story: they think I am useless. A fact: a plan did not work. Story: nothing ever works for me. When you recognize the difference, you regain power. You cannot always control your first emotional reaction. That is human. But you can control whether you let that reaction define your identity or your future. Strong individuals do not avoid emotions. They examine them. They question them. They ask, is this feeling pointing to something useful, or is it exaggerating reality? Emotions are often loud. Facts are usually quiet. Fear screams. Doubt whispers. Insecurity repeats itself. But truth is steady. Learning to separate feelings from facts builds emotional stability. It prevents you from turning temporary setbacks into permanent self-judgments. It allows you to respond instead of react. And here is something important: emotions often amplify the worst case scenario. Your mind is designed to protect you, so it scans for danger. But in modern life, that protective system overacts. A small mistake feels like a catastrophe. A small delay feels like rejection. A small challenge feels like failure. If you do not challenge your emotional interpretation, you will live in exaggerated reality. Instead, slow down. Write down what happened. Then write down what you are telling yourself about it. Look at it objectively. Ask, is there another explanation? Ask, is this emotion helping me grow or holding me back? Ask, if I were calm, how would I see this situation? This practice builds mental discipline. It weakens emotional impulsivity. It strengthens rational thinking. You begin to realize that many of your strongest feelings were based on incomplete information. And once you see that pattern, you stop reacting so quickly. You stop quitting because of one bad moment. You stop attacking because of one sharp comment. You stop doubting yourself because of one setback. You gain emotional distance. And that distance gives you control. Killing your emotions in this sense means refusing to let them rewrite the facts. It means choosing truth over temporary intensity. It means understanding that just because something feels overwhelming does not mean it is permanent or powerful. You are not your emotions. You are the observer of them. And the moment you step back and separate feeling from fact, you stop being controlled by the storm, and you start becoming the calm within it. There is a powerful space in your life that most people never learn to use. It is the space between what happens to you and how you respond to it. In that space lies your freedom. In that space lies your strength. When we talk about emotions, we are really talking about mastering that space. Because emotions move fast. They are immediate. They rise in seconds. Anger can flare in a heartbeat. Fear can grip you instantly. Hurt can sink into your chest before you even understand what happened. But reaction does not have to be instant. Most of the damage in life does not come from what we feel. It comes from what we do next. Someone says something sharp, and you fire back. You receive criticism, and you shut down. You feel embarrassed, and you withdraw. You feel frustrated, and you quit. All of those reactions happen because there was no pause, no space, no awareness, just emotion leading action. Powerful people train themselves to pause. That pause might be 5 seconds. It might be one deep breath. It might be a short walk. But in that pause, something shifts. Emotion loses urgency. Logic regains access. Wisdom enters the room. When you pause, you ask yourself, is this worth reacting to? Will this matter in a week? Am I responding from strength or from hurt? That pause protects your future. Think about how many relationships could have been saved if someone had paused. How many opportunities could have been preserved? How many regrets could have been avoided? One uncontrolled emotional reaction can undo years of progress. And here is the truth: reacting feels powerful in the moment. But restraint is far more powerful in the long run. When you master your reaction, you demonstrate emotional maturity. You show that you are not easily shaken. You communicate stability. You create respect. Imagine someone criticizes you publicly. Your first emotion might be anger. Your heart rate rises. Your mind searches for a comeback. But if you pause, you create options. You can choose calm. You can ask questions. You can decide to respond later. In that pause, you move from impulse to intention. That is emotional control. Pausing does not mean suppressing your feelings. It means acknowledging them without letting them explode outward. It means saying internally, I feel this, but I do not need to act on it immediately. This skill transforms every area of life. In your career, it prevents rash decisions. In your relationships, it prevents unnecessary conflict. In your personal growth, it prevents quitting during discomfort. Because many times, the urge to give up is emotional, not logical. You feel tired, so you want to stop. You feel discouraged, so you want to withdraw. But if you pause, you often realize the feeling is temporary. Emotions peak and fade. Research shows that most intense emotional waves last about 90 seconds if you do not keep feeding them with thoughts. But when you replay the story in your mind, when you rehearse the insult, when you imagine worst-case scenarios, you extend the emotion. Pausing interrupts that cycle. Try this simple discipline. When emotion rises, take 3 slow breaths before speaking. Not 1, 3. That small ritual creates space. It calms your nervous system. It slows the rush of reaction. Over time, that space becomes your strength. You will notice that fewer things disturb you, fewer comments trigger you, fewer setbacks derail you, not because life became easier, but because you became steadier. Killing your emotions means killing impulsivity. It means refusing to let the first wave decide your direction. When you pause, you regain authorship over your actions. You stop being controlled by circumstances. You stop being pushed around by temporary feelings. You begin to respond from values, not from volatility. And that is the difference between someone who is ruled by emotion and someone who leads their life with intention. In the space between stimulus and response, you find power. And when you learn to live in that space, your emotions no longer control you. You control them. If you truly want to master your emotions, you must stop running from discomfort. Emotional control is not built in comfort zones. It is built in pressure. Just like physical muscles grow when they are challenged, emotional strength grows when it is tested. Most people avoid situations that trigger uncomfortable feelings. They avoid difficult conversations because they fear rejection. They avoid new opportunities because they fear failure. They avoid challenges because they fear embarrassment. And each time they avoid, they unintentionally train their emotions to be in charge. Avoidance feeds fear. Exposure builds strength. When you consistently avoid discomfort, your emotional tolerance shrinks. Small problems feel overwhelming. Minor criticism feels devastating. Temporary setbacks feel permanent. But when you lean into discomfort, your tolerance expands. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. Think about your first public presentation. Your heart raced. Your palms sweated. Your voice may have shaken. That emotional intensity felt almost paralyzing. But if you continued practicing, the fear decreased. Not because fear disappeared entirely, but because you became stronger than it. Emotional resilience works the same way. You must train yourself to stay present when discomfort rises. When anxiety appears, instead of escaping, breathe and remain. When sadness visits, instead of distracting yourself immediately, sit with it. When frustration builds, instead of quitting, continue with discipline. This does not mean you ignore serious emotional pain. It means you stop treating every uncomfortable feeling as an emergency. Growth is uncomfortable by nature. Discipline is uncomfortable. Honest feedback is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable, but discomfort does not equal danger. It often signals expansion. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is this: instead of asking, how do I avoid feeling uncomfortable? Ask, what is this discomfort teaching me? Discomfort teaches patience. Discomfort teaches humility. Discomfort teaches endurance. When you stay with a difficult emotion without reacting impulsively, you strengthen your self-control. You prove to yourself that feelings are temporary waves, not permanent prisons. Consider athletes. They do not build strength by lifting what is easy. They increase resistance gradually. Emotional discipline requires similar training. Start small. Have one honest conversation you have been avoiding. Complete one task even when you do not feel like it. Stay calm in one situation that would normally trigger you. Each time you endure discomfort without collapsing, you increase your emotional capacity. Over time, things that once controlled you lose their grip. Criticism no longer destroys your confidence. Delays no longer create panic. Rejection no longer defines your worth. You begin to see emotions as signals, not commands. And something powerful happens when you stop running from discomfort. You gain courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. Courage grows when you repeatedly prove that you can survive emotional intensity without losing control. This is how leaders are built. This is how resilience is formed. If you always choose comfort, your emotions will stay fragile. If you choose growth, your emotions will become strong but steady. Killing your emotions in this context means killing your dependence on comfort. It means refusing to let temporary discomfort dictate your limits. Life will challenge you. There will be loss. There will be criticism. There will be setbacks. You cannot prevent those experiences, but you can prepare your emotional muscles so that when challenges come, you respond with stability rather than collapse. Emotional strength is not loud. It is quiet endurance. It is calm under pressure. It is steady in uncertainty. And the more you practice leaning into discomfort, the more powerful you become. Not because you feel less, but because you can handle more. One of the strongest emotional traps you can fall into is attachment to outcomes. When your happiness, confidence, or sense of worth depends entirely on a specific result, your emotions become unstable. You rise and fall with every win and every loss. If you win, you feel powerful. If you lose, you feel worthless. If you are praised, you feel validated. If you are criticized, you feel shaken. That is emotional dependency on outcomes, and it will exhaust you. Learning to kill your emotions means learning to detach from outcomes while staying committed to effort. It means understanding that you control your preparation, your discipline, your character, but you do not control every result. When you attach your identity to outcomes, you give external circumstances control over your internal state. That is a dangerous trade. Imagine you apply for a promotion. You work hard. You prepare. You give your best. But someone else gets selected. If your self-worth is attached to that outcome, disappointment turns into self-doubt. You begin to question your value. But if your identity is anchored in your values, hard work, growth, integrity, then even when the outcome is not what you wanted, your stability remains intact. You can say, I gave my best. I learned. I will grow. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you care deeply about your effort, not obsessively about the result. The truth is, outcomes are influenced by many variables beyond your control: timing, other people's decisions, economic shifts, unexpected events. If you allow your emotional state to be controlled by factors you cannot influence, you will live in constant turbulence. But values are yours. Integrity is yours. Discipline is yours. Preparation is yours. Effort is yours. When you anchor yourself in values, you become emotionally stable. You show up consistently because that is who you are, not because you are guaranteed applause. This shift protects you from emotional extremes. Success will not inflate you. Failure will not break you. You become steady. Consider athletes again. The ones who last are not emotionally shattered by every loss. They review the game, adjust strategy, and return to training. Their focus is on improvement, not just outcome. In life, the same principle applies. If you start a business, some days will be profitable, others will not. If you are building a career, some projects will succeed, others will fail. If you are growing personally, some days will feel strong, others uncertain. If you tie your emotional well-being to daily results, you will burn out. Detachment creates freedom. It allows you to take risks without being paralyzed by fear of failure. It allows you to accept feedback without collapsing into insecurity. It allows you to celebrate wins without becoming arrogant. You begin to understand that outcomes are chapters, not definitions. Killing your emotions here means killing the emotional roller coaster created by attachment. It means saying, I will measure myself by my commitment, not by every temporary result. And here is the beautiful part. When you detach from desperate attachment, your performance often improves. Because you are no longer acting from anxiety. You are acting from clarity. You prepare fully. You execute confidently. You accept the outcome gracefully. Then you adjust and continue. This mindset builds resilience. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you focused on what truly matters. Growth over ego, progress over perfection, character over applause. When your emotions are anchored in values instead of outcomes, you stop being shaken by every external event. You become rooted. And a rooted person is difficult to destabilize. There comes a point in life where growth is no longer about learning more information. It becomes about managing yourself, your tone, your timing, your reactions, your restraint. The final step in mastering your emotions is this: choose response over reaction. Every single time, reaction is instant. It is fueled by ego, hurt, pride, fear, or anger. It is sharp. It is loud. It feels powerful in the moment. But it often leaves damage behind. Response is deliberate. It is thoughtful. It is controlled. It considers consequences. It reflects maturity. When you react, your emotions are in charge. When you respond, your character is in charge. That difference defines leaders from followers, stability from chaos, growth from regret. Think about moments in your life when you reacted emotionally. Maybe you said something you later wished you could take back. Maybe you quit something too soon. Maybe you made a decision based on anger or insecurity. In those moments, emotion was driving. And when emotion drives, clarity disappears. Now think about moments when you stayed calm under pressure. When you listened instead of arguing. When you chose silence instead of proving a point. When you waited before making a decision. Those were moments of response. And those moments likely brought you respect, peace, and long-term advantage. Reaction seeks immediate release. Response seeks long-term strength. Emotional maturity is not about never feeling intense emotions. It is about not letting intensity dictate behavior. For example, if someone disrespects you, your first reaction may be to defend yourself aggressively. But a mature response might be calm, measured, and firm. Strength does not always need volume. Sometimes it needs composure. If you feel jealous, reaction may push you to compare, compete, or criticize. Response allows you to reflect, improve, and focus on your own path. If you feel anger, reaction may destroy trust. Response may create understanding. Choosing response over reaction requires awareness. It requires slowing down. It requires asking yourself, what kind of person do I want to be in this moment? That question shifts the focus from emotion to identity. Do you want to be reactive, easily triggered, controlled by circumstance? Or do you want to be stable, thoughtful, and respected? Every situation gives you the opportunity to decide. And here is something powerful. People may forget what you felt, but they will remember how you handled it. They will remember your composure. They will remember your restraint. They will remember your wisdom under pressure. Your reputation is built in emotional moments. Killing your emotions in this final sense means killing impulsivity. It means refusing to let pride speak too quickly. It means refusing to let anger control your words. It means refusing to let insecurity define your actions. Maturity is attractive. Stability is rare. Emotional control is magnetic. When you respond instead of react, you gain influence. You gain trust. You gain inner peace. You stop creating unnecessary conflict. You stop sabotaging opportunities. You start moving with intention. Life will test you. People will challenge you. Situations will provoke you. But you do not have to mirror chaos. You can bring calm. You can feel deeply without acting recklessly. You can experience intensity without losing control. You can stand firm without becoming harsh. That is true strength. And when maturity leads your emotions, instead of the other way around, you step into a new level of power. A quiet, steady, unshakable power. That is what it truly means to master yourself. Let us bring this truth home with clarity and courage. You are never meant to be ruled by every feeling that passes through you. Emotions are part of being human, yes. They give color to life. They create connection. They deepen experience. But when they control your decisions, they quietly begin to control your destiny. To kill your emotions does not mean to become cold, distant, or empty. It means to kill their authority over your choices. It means you feel deeply, but you choose wisely. It means you acknowledge the storm, but you do not let it steer the ship. You have learned that feelings are not facts. You have learned to pause before reacting. You have learned to grow stronger through discomfort. You have learned to detach from outcomes and anchor yourself in values. And you have learned to choose response over reaction. These are not small lessons. These are life-changing disciplines. Imagine what your life would look like if you stopped quitting when it felt hard. Imagine how your relationships would improve if you responded instead of reacted. Imagine how much further you would go if fear did not stop you, if doubt did not define you, if anger did not control you. Emotional control is not suppression. It is elevation. It is rising above the impulse. It is rising above the insecurity. It is rising above the temporary wave of intensity. Because here is the truth: emotions are temporary, but consequences are lasting. A moment of anger can destroy years of trust. A moment of fear can delay years of progress. A moment of insecurity can cost a powerful opportunity. But a moment of restraint can build respect. A moment of courage can change direction. A moment of composure can protect your future. Your power lives in those moments. When you master your emotions, you become steady. And in a world full of instability, steadiness is rare. It is magnetic. It is respected. It is powerful. You begin to move with intention instead of impulse. You begin to make decisions based on purpose instead of pressure. You begin to respond from strength instead of reacting from pain. And something beautiful happens when you stop being controlled by every emotional wave. You find peace. Not because life becomes easy, but because you become strong. Peace does not come from the absence of challenge. It comes from the presence of control. You will still feel. You will still care. You will still experience joy, sadness, excitement, and frustration. But those emotions will pass through you, not rule you. That is maturity. That is growth. That is leadership over your own life. At the end of the day, success is not just about money, achievement, or recognition. It is about self-mastery. It is about being able to look at yourself and know that you are in control of your reactions, your discipline, your character. When you master your emotions, you master your decisions. When you master your decisions, you master your direction. When you master your direction, you master your life. So feel deeply, but choose wisely. Experience fully, but act intentionally. Do not let temporary emotions dictate permanent outcomes. Stand steady. Stay composed. Lead yourself first. Because once you conquer the chaos within, nothing outside of you can truly control your future.